Sophia, a stepmother, often found herself surrounded by an overwhelming sense of loneliness. Her husband, James, was a hardworking entrepreneur completely engrossed in his career. While Sophia admired his dedication, she deeply yearned for small displays of affection, simple gestures like a touch or an acknowledgement that he noticed her. Over time, their marriage had fallen into a monotonous routine, devoid of passion or spontaneity. Sophia's days blurred together, spent in their sprawling home with only the quiet and her thoughts for company. Everything shifted when her 25-year-old stepson Liam returned home. Liam's presence was magnetic, radiating vitality and a confidence that seemed to brighten every space he entered. Fresh from his studies abroad, he carried himself with an air of sophistication and charm. Sophia couldn't help but notice how his laughter seemed to fill the house with energy, bringing life to its once silent corners. Be sure to subscribe to my channel to hear more fascinating true stories like this one. Don't forget to stick around until the end and like the video. It's going to be a story you won't want to miss. One evening after taking a shower, Sophia stood in front of the mirror drying her hair. She reached back to unclasp her bra, letting it slip off her shoulders before tossing it onto the bed. For a moment she gazed at her reflection, her bare chest rising and falling with a soft sigh. Dressed only in her bottoms, she felt vulnerable yet liberated within the privacy of her room. Suddenly the door creaked open. Sophia spun around, instinctively covering herself. "Liam!" she exclaimed, her voice filled with shock. His face flushed bright red, and he quickly averted his gaze, though his eyes lingered for a moment longer than was appropriate. "I'm sorry, I thought you were downstairs," he stammered, his tone laced with embarrassment. Sophia's heart pounded, a mix of shame and something she couldn't quite name. "You need to knock," she said, though her voice came out softer than she had intended. "I'm sorry," Liam muttered again. "I'll go." But he didn't move. Instead, his gaze flicked back to hers, his expression caught between regret and something unspoken. "Liam," Sophia began, her tone gentler this time. "It's fine. Just close the door, please." He obeyed, shutting the door behind him but hesitating before leaving. "I didn't mean to walk in on you," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on the floor. "But I can't stop thinking about you." Sophia froze. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam stepped closer, his confidence returning. "I've always admired you, Sophia," he confessed. "But now that I'm back, it's more than that. I see you, and I can't look away." A lump formed in Sophia's throat, and the air between them grew heavy with unspoken emotions. "Liam, this is wrong," she murmured. "Then why does it feel so right?" he countered, interrupting her. Before she could respond, he was standing directly in front of her, his hand brushed against her arm, sending a shiver through her. She didn't pull back. Instead, she met his eyes, feeling her resolve begin to waver. "You're young." "You don't understand what you're saying," she said softly, though her words lacked conviction. "I know exactly what I'm saying," he replied firmly. "You deserve to feel wanted, to feel loved." His words pierced her defenses, and when he leaned in, she didn't resist. Their lips met in a tentative kiss that quickly deepened as passion took hold. Liam's hands rested on her waist, his touch both firm and gentle, as if afraid to shatter the moment. Sophia allowed herself to surrender, her arms wrapping around his neck. For the first time in years, she felt alive, desired, and cherished. When they finally broke apart, their breaths came in short, uneven gasps. "Liam," Sophia whispered, her voice trembling, "we shouldn't be doing this." "But we already have," he replied softly, resting his forehead against hers. Sophia closed her eyes, torn between her emotions and her sense of right and wrong. As Liam gently cupped her cheek, she realized this moment had irrevocably altered everything. Stepping back, she crossed her arms over her chest, the weight of their actions sinking in. Her heart thundered in her chest, drowning out all coherent thoughts. Liam stood still, his breathing heavy, his gaze unwavering. "We can't," she said again, her voice faltering. "We just can't." "Tell me you didn't feel something, Sophia. Tell me this isn't real," Liam said, his voice steady yet full of emotion. He reached for her hands, placing them on his chest. His words hung in the air, heavy with longing, as he leaned in for another kiss. Sophia found herself lost in the moment, forgetting everything else. When they finally paused, she looked up at him, her lips trembling as she searched for the right words. "Liam, this is complicated," she whispered. "It doesn't have to be," he replied, taking her hand in his. His fingers brushed against hers, sending a spark through her that she couldn't ignore. I don't care about the rules or what anyone thinks. I care about you. Sophia pulled her hand away, hugging herself tightly. You don't understand what you're saying, Liam. This is dangerous. For both of us. Then let it be dangerous, he insisted, urgency in his tone. I've never felt this way before. Sophia, I can't just ignore what's happening, Liam said, his voice firm and filled with emotion. The intensity of his words, combined with the warmth in his eyes, shook Sophia's resolve. She turned her head away, trying to calm her racing heart. You need to leave, she whispered, her voice so soft it was almost inaudible. Please, Liam. He hesitated, his jaw tightening as if debating whether to push further. Finally, he gave a small nod, though the pain in his expression was undeniable. All right, he murmured, moving toward the door. Before leaving, he glanced back, his eyes full of longing. But this isn't over, Sophia. I know you feel it too. The door clicked shut, leaving Sophia alone. Her thoughts swirled with a storm of emotions and unspoken desires. She sank onto the edge of her bed, burying her face in her hands, overwhelmed by the weight of what had happened. In the days that followed, Sophia tried to avoid Liam, immersing herself in chores and errands in an effort to stay busy. But no matter how much she tried to distract herself, she couldn't escape the memory of his touch, his words, or the fire they had ignited between them. Liam, however, was not someone who could be easily ignored. Late one evening, as Sophia stood in the kitchen washing dishes, she heard his footsteps behind her. I can't keep pretending everything is normal, he said, his voice steady but charged with emotion. Sophia placed the dish back into the sink and turned to face him. Liam, we agreed. No, he interrupted, stepping closer. You agreed. I never did. Please, don't make this any harder than it already is, she pleaded, her voice trembling. I'm not trying to make it harder, he replied, his tone softening. I'm trying to make it real. Before she could respond, Liam closed the space between them. His hands gently cradled her face, and his lips brushed against hers, a tentative touch, seeking permission. This time, Sophia didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in, her hands gripping his arms as she allowed the floodgates to open. The kiss deepened, carrying the weight of all the emotions they had held back for so long. Liam's hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer. For the first time in years, Sophia felt truly wanted, cherished, and alive. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads rested against each other. Both were breathless, their hearts pounding in unison. We'll figure this out, Liam whispered, his voice resolute. Together. Sophia closed her eyes, torn between her emotions and her sense of reason. Yet, for the first time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of something more, something forbidden but irresistible. In the days that followed, their interactions became a delicate balancing act. Every glance exchanged in the kitchen and every accidental brush of fingers in the hallway was charged with unspoken tension. Despite her initial resistance, Sophia's defenses began to crumble. One quiet evening, as the house settled into stillness, Liam found Sophia sitting alone on the porch swing. The warm summer air enveloped them, the distant chirping of crickets the only sound. Can't sleep? He asked, his voice low to preserve the peaceful atmosphere. She shook her head and patted the spot beside her. Too much on my mind. Liam sat down, the swing creaking slightly beneath their weight. For a moment they sat in silence, the tension between them almost palpable. I've been thinking about you, Liam admitted, finally breaking the quiet. Sophia turned to him, her lips parting in surprise. Liam! He interrupted her gently, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering sincerity. Let me finish. You're all I think about, Sophia. You've taken over every part of my mind, and I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way. Her breath caught, and she looked away, her eyes settling on the dark horizon. It's not that simple, she whispered. It is, Liam insisted, his voice growing stronger. What we feel for each other is real. Why fight it? Sophia turned back to him, her eyes filled with a mix of longing and fear. Because it's not just about us, Liam. There are consequences. People wouldn't understand. Reaching for her hand, Liam gently brushed his thumb over her knuckles. I don't care what anyone else thinks. All I care about is you. His words broke through the barriers she had clung to for so long. The restraint that had held her back dissolved, and she leaned forward, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was both tender and desperate. Liam responded instantly, his hand sliding to the back of her neck, deepening the kiss. The connection between them crackled with energy, a mix of repressed passion and raw emotion. The swing rocked slightly as Liam pulled her closer, his other hand resting on her waist. Time seemed to stand still as they lost themselves in each other. the outside world fading into nothingness. When they finally separated, their foreheads rested together, their breaths mingling in the warm night air. Sophia opened her eyes, her heart hammering in her chest as she looked at him. "This changes everything," she murmured. "Good," Liam said with a soft smile. "Because I don't want to go back to pretending." Sophia let out a shaky laugh, her emotions a mix of joy and uncertainty. "We'll have to figure this out." "We will," he promised, his hand still holding hers. Together. The night stretched on, and for the first time Sophia felt a flicker of hope, a belief that perhaps their love could withstand the challenges that lay ahead. As weeks turned into months, Sophia and Liam found themselves navigating an increasingly tangled web of emotions and secrecy. Their passion burned fiercely, but the weight of what their relationship meant loomed over their happiness like an ever-present shadow. One evening, after a deeply emotional conversation, Sophia made a decision. Sitting together in her bedroom, she held Liam's hands tightly in her own, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "We can't keep doing this, Liam," she said softly, her voice unsteady. Liam's face fell, the hope that had kept him going dimming like a flickering candle about to go out. "Why?" he asked, his voice filled with desperation. "I thought we were building something real." "We were," she whispered, her grip on his hands tightening. "And it was beautiful. But it can't last. The world won't let it." She took a shaky breath, her voice breaking as she continued. "I love you, Liam. That's why I have to let you go." Liam shook his head, tears glistening in his own eyes. We can find a way. We can leave. Start fresh somewhere far away. I'll give you everything, Sophia. Just don't walk away from this." Her heart ached at his plea, but she knew what had to be done. "You deserve more than a love hidden in the shadows and filled with fear. You deserve a life where you don't have to constantly look over your shoulder or question whether what we have is right or wrong." Liam cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. "You're the only thing that feels right. Without you, nothing else matters." Sophia leaned into his touch, committing to memory the warmth of his hands on her skin and the way his love made her feel so alive. But as much as she longed to stay, she knew their story had reached its conclusion. They shared one final kiss, lingering as they poured every ounce of their love and longing into that fleeting moment. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads rested together, neither ready to fully let go. "I'll never forget you," she murmured, her voice barely more than a whisper. "You'll always be in my heart," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. With that, Sophia stepped back, the space between them feeling like an unbridgeable chasm. Liam watched silently as she turned and walked away, her silhouette gradually fading down the hallway. He didn't try to stop her. He understood that this was her way of protecting them both, even though it meant breaking their hearts. Years later, Sophia sat in a bustling cafe, sipping her coffee and watching the world move around her. Life had gone on, yet the memories of her time with Liam lingered, bittersweet and forever cherished. She smiled faintly as her fingers traced the rim of her cup, the echoes of their love a quiet reminder of what once had been. Across the room, a familiar figure caught her attention. "Liam."